Welcome and good morning. My name is Stacy Kitt, and I'm really pleased to be on the chancel this morning for my favorite kind of service. You are going to hear from several members of this congregation about raising UU children. Two of today's speakers were also raised as UUs, and they will share about that as well. We welcome you to this sanctuary and worship service, and welcome those of us, those joining us online. So if you would, turn around, wave at the camera in the back. Hello, Zoomers. Welcome. There they are. Okay, lots of people with their cameras off. We hope that in this congregation and sacred space, wherever you are, that you will be strengthened by spiritual encouragement and find comfort from those who join with you in worship. If you are here in the sanctuary, please take a moment to verify that your cell phones are muted. And I should also say, it'll be Tuesday when I remember to turn the ringer back on. To everyone familiar and everyone new to this congregation, you are welcomed with love. If you are here in person, you are invited to stop by the welcome table in the vestibule if you would like to learn more about this congregation and Unitarian Universalism. If you are joining us online, please visit the newcomer page on our website to get acquainted with us. And now, let us take a moment to settle ourselves, to open our hearts and minds to what worship will bring this morning. At the sounding of the chimes, let our spirits enter into a different space, a space of worship, of life, of love, of everything that we hold sacred. May we take this time to grow our souls. Oops.
Child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in a usual way. There were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. He was talking before I knew it, and as he grew, he said, I'm gonna be like you, Dad. You know I'm gonna be like you. In the cats in the cradle, in the silver spoon, the little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then. My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, thanks for the ball, Dad, come on, let's play. Can you teach me to throw? I said, not today, I've got a lot to do. He said, that's okay. And he walked away, but his smile never dimmed. It said, I'm gonna be like him, yeah. You know I'm gonna be like him. And the cat's in the cradle, in the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then. My son came from college just the other day. So much like a man, I just had to say, son, I'm proud of you, can you sit for a while? He shook his head and he said with a smile, what I'd really like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later, can I have them, please? and the cat's in the cradle in the silver spoon. The little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then. I've long since retired, my son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you if you don't mind. He said, I'd love to, Dad, if I can find the time. See, my new job's a hassle, the kids have the flu, but it's sure nice talking to you, Dad. It's sure been nice talking to you. As I hung up the phone, it occurred to me he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. And the cat's in the cradle in the silver spoon. Little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, son, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then.
Please join me in the unison chalice lighting up on the screen as Billy and Tilly Rame light our chalice. We light this chalice for our children and youth and for us, celebrating the flame of faith lit in each of us, honoring the light each of us brings to the world, rejoicing in the community we created together. The seed of today's service was planted when my daughter Raina, who was well into adulthood at the time, told me that raising her as a Unitarian Universalist was my best parenting decision. If you think about how many decisions you make in the course of parenting a child to adulthood, that is no small statement. I'm going to tell you why I thought raising her as a UU was a good decision, and also why she thought it was a good decision. Raina was born in the city of Albany, New York, and went to a public elementary school. I had been a vegetarian for more than 20 years when Raina was born, so she was raised as a vegetarian. Now, we are each our own norm. So when she entered school, I had no idea how much her upbringing differed from those of her classmates. Because of how we ate, her school lunches did not look like the other kids' lunches. For example, carrots and hummus were a frequent part of her meal. It wasn't only the other children who didn't know what she was eating. Her second grade teacher had never had hummus either. So one day at snack time, I brought in enough hummus and baby carrots for the whole class. Some kids liked it and some didn't. Either way, the mystery around what she was eating was solved, and it was no longer an issue. When we joined the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany, New York, it was like coming in from liberal left field into the warm embrace of the dugout. We had found our team. We were middle of the road in that congregation because we were vegetarian and not vegan. The community we found in our Albany congregation shared and supported our values and the choices we made about how we lived our lives. I remember the first Sunday Raina went to Sunday school. She came bounding out carrying this notebook. She told me with excitement that it was given to her so she could write down her thoughts about God. I don't remember how often she used the book for that purpose, but the fact that she was given space to express her own beliefs as opposed to being told what to believe meant the world to me. I am a believer in accurate, comprehensive sex education. Raina went through the OWL program. OWL, that's OWL, is the acronym for Our Whole Lives, the lifelong sexuality education curriculum taught in UU churches. The program spends a lot of time on helping kids figure out and articulate their beliefs about sex and sexuality. One of the values clarification exercises had the kids stand on a continuum, indicating how strongly they agreed or disagreed with a given idea. One Sunday on the drive home, Raina told me that that day's exercise had been about whether they believed condoms should be available in school for free. If you believed it was always a good idea, you would stand on one end of the continuum. You would stand on the other end if you thought it was always a bad idea. You could stand in the middle if you thought it was sometimes a good idea or if you weren't sure. Mind you, the kids undertook this exercise when they were in middle school. I was not at all surprised to hear that Raina felt strongly that it was always a good idea to make condoms available in schools. What did surprise me was that she was initially alone, standing in one end of the continuum. But the exercise didn't end there. The kids were asked to explain why they believed what they believed. And whatever she said, Raina was able to shift the opinions of her entire class. So by the end, all of them, at least in that moment, came to believe that making condoms available in school was a good idea. I believe it's critically important that young people are given the opportunity to figure out what they believe. And where UU religious education differs from that in other churches is that from a very young age, children are given a lot of information and are encouraged to discern and articulate their beliefs. They also have the opportunity to explain those beliefs to their peers and the adults in their lives. In the process, they also learn that it's okay to change their minds, that what they believe in junior high isn't necessarily what they'll believe forever. Raina went to UU Sunday School from second grade through middle school, and when she got to high school, she met every Sunday with a UU youth group. In that group, she found adults who she trusted and friends who continued to support her in her adult search for truth and meaning. I asked Raina, who is now 30, why she was so glad to have been raised a UU, and this is the list she sent me. Lifelong friendships. She has a community of peers who accepted her no matter how weird she was or how odd her personal sense of style, and they still do. She sees friends all over the country who she met in our New York congregation, at Unirondack, which was her UU summer camp, and at youth conventions. She had an early understanding of her queerness and felt comfortable coming out at a young age. She went through the OWL program, and her sex-positive sex education meant she had a lot of knowledge she could share with her friends. She felt confident enough to buy condoms and pregnancy tests for nervous friends. She developed a strong moral code around racial, disability, and environmental justice, as well as a reverence for the earth and animals. Raina grew up to be a writer, among other things, and got practice with public speaking and sharing her writing and art through the Rite of Passage program, summer camp, campfires, open mics, and talent shows where she read her poetry. She benefited from an intergenerational community that supported and mentored her, and what she described as unconditional love from many sources. She also listed a lifelong love of NPR, but I'm pretty sure she actually got that from me. You're going to hear today from people who were lucky enough to have been raised as UUs, and from people who are raising UU children. Each has a unique perspective, but I think it's fair to say we all think that raising UU children is a really good idea. It's my pleasure to introduce the Reverend Kelly Wheat Rivers, who will share her thoughts on raising UU children, which she has entitled Less Unlearning.
I decided to call my segment today Less Unlearning because that's the approach I've been trying to take with our daughter Emma when it comes to faith and religion. While my faith of origin was rooted in the concept of loving thy neighbor as yourself, it felt contradictory to also have the idea of original sin be pushed. To think of myself in a positive light was considered prideful. And let me tell you, not feeling like I could talk positively about myself and my abilities made for some really interesting first job interviews. It was very tricky to try to talk up my skills when I was supposed to be humble. Then came the idea of constantly referring to someone or something else as the ultimate authority. Whether that was God or a minister or some other person, it was never myself. In fact, trying to trust myself was highly discouraged because we were flawed. Remember, original sin. But as a Unitarian Universalist, I have gotten to delve into what I believe. I've been able to find what's right for my soul. When I meet people from our faith community, the purpose is to make connections, find people I can lean on in difficult times and celebrate with in good times. There's not always the underlying current of the ulterior motive of trying to save people's souls. I hope that my kiddo will be surrounded by interesting and kind people, people that she'll learn from, people that will help her learn the roots of Unitarian Universalism as well as other faith traditions, and that she'll be able to figure out what's right for her. She's giving me this look. It's very interesting to me the things that I still am unlearning. As somebody in the past several years who has found a connection with sacred feminism and paganism and acknowledgement of the seasons and the goddess, all of these words still have this kind of like pinch in my stomach because of how I was raised, but not with Emma, because that's her norm. As it is, she's already experiencing some incredible things much earlier than I did. I'm pretty sure some of my professors in college were the first ordained women ministers that I ever met, despite being from a tradition that ordained women. Emma, on the other hand, her first minister she really knew was Reverend Cheryl, then Reverend Kathy, then me, now Alyssa. It reminds me of when we were watching the Olympics recently, and we had been watching women's gymnastics because she did a project on Simone Biles, and we came upon men's gymnastics, and she said, "Oh, I forgot boys can be good at this too." I think that's how it is. It's like, oh, boys can be ministers too. My hope for Emma and for all of our kids is that she'll have a foundation of love and of curiosity and of open-mindedness, where she and they can grow an authentic and evolving faith. and that they can live out their weekly chalice lighting in Sunday school of being people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. I am so grateful for this place and for the love and the community for our seekers, our youth, and all of us are surrounded with. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Please join with us as we sing hymn 191, Rise as You Are Willing and Able. Now, Robin Rame is going to share her thoughts on raising seekers.
So I adore our new acronym of Seekers for our children. I don't remember what it stands for in this moment, but
Spiritually exploring and engaging kids.
spiritually exploring and engaging kids. So here's a little bit of my musing on raising my seekers. When I found out I was pregnant with my first, I did what every good Midwestern mom would do and tried to find a church. My husband at the time and I went to a few different services at the conservative Christian churches in the area. What I had found was my spiritual and religious beliefs had shifted just enough to make the services inauthentic to me and definitely to the family I was starting. I found Unitarian Universalism and this congregation when I was pregnant with my second son. My husband and I were both so impressed to find people who believed like we did, even when we ourselves agreed on very little. Anthony began in nursery being just 2 when Jacob was born. Jacob spent his first year or so nursing and napping in the church chairs during services before squirming his way into the nursery as well. When they moved up into the then preschool RE room, I joined them teaching for a few years before moving into other church roles. By then, Anthony was enjoying a curriculum based on Harry Potter with some of his best friends. Jacob was learning about the Bible and what it means to be in a culturally Christian part of the world. The playground was filled with running, laughing children, and joy. This is my family's history in this congregation, which, while important, doesn't answer the question, why do I want my children to be raised UU? My oldest is now 16 and on the brink of adulthood. My middle is 13 and deep into middle school. And I think all or most of you are familiar with my youngest, Tilly. They are all beautiful, critical thinkers and not afraid to tell people what they think or challenge opposing viewpoints. My boys search for the meaning behind the ideas and engage in intellectual conversations and debates. Jacob loves talking to peers about their religious viewpoints and learning from their experiences. When asked what they remember from RE when they were young, they both said, cookies. But also, they weren't limited in their beliefs. They were taught to be lifelong learners seeking their personal spiritual truth, whatever that may be, while learning to be good humans in the world. They were taught to be compassionate and stand up for the rights of others, even as they were born into the privileged role of white men. Some of my favorite moments are evening intellectual discussions in the kitchen with my boys. Neither attend regularly, but hopefully you will see them floating around from time to time. Be assured they are continuing their UU education at home and have benefited from their time here. Now, my darling little sprite, Tilly, has never known anything but here, and this is her second home. She also nursed and blew out a diaper or two in these seats in the early days. She has friends, favorite grown-ups, songs, and stories in her soul from this, her spiritual home. She feels deeply in the world, and here is allowed to be her whole self, inspired to become the best version of whoever that may be. She is taught loving compassion and kindness for others and the world. She is taught the myriad of beautiful religious traditions from different cultures and how they all connect in love. Her fire is tended here with nurturing and respect, and really, what else could a mama bear ask for? Thank you to all the RE teachers and volunteers who gave and continue to give your time and talents for my children and our children. They are our future. Through them, we can look for a future of hope, peace, and love. Thank you.
We have a special treat today. Instead of a story, we have a song for all ages called The Marvelous Toy, which is going to be performed by Mike and John Henson. So I would invite all the kids to bring their pillows and come up and have a seat as usual.
So before we start, we're going to learn a couple lessons first. Not only the kids here, but everyone else here as well. Who has or had a favorite toy? Raise your hand. Growing up, you have a favorite toy? A lot of older people's hands up there also. Okay. Wow, we got more people coming. This is great. Right? And I'm also going to teach you, so I want you to think about that toy as we sing this song. The next thing, we're going to teach you a word that maybe you don't know very well. Do you know the word marvelous?
Yes.
Marvelous. What does it mean?
I mean, like, really great.
Really great. Perfect. Here endeth the lesson. Exactly. So we're going to sing a song about a marvelous toy, and I want you to learn 3 little words that are going to be up on the screen, but I want everybody to say or sing whatever you're comfortable doing when you see this word come, because in the chorus of the song, we're going to say, you ready? Zip. Say zip. Zip. And then we're going to say bop. Say bop. Bop. And then this might be hard for some people. Can you do? Whoa! Wow! You're all going to be in Spanish class tomorrow. People say they can't do that. So these are sounds I would like you to make with us. Jonathan, my son, and I, as we play this song for you. This is a Tom Paxton song, one of my favorites. This is called A Marvelous Toy. Excuse me, I got to put my finger picks on so I can play this thing called an auto harp, by the way. People sometimes ask me, what is that thing? It's on the D. When I was a wee little lad, full of health and joy, my father homeward came one night and gave to me a toy. A wonder to behold it was, with many colors bright. And the moment I laid eyes on it, it became my heart's delight. So it went zip when it moved, bop when it stopped, When it stood still, good. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. The first time that I picked it up, I got a big surprise. For right on the bottom were two green buttons that looked like big green eyes. I first pushed one and then the other, then I twisted its lid. And when I put it down again, here is what it did. It went zip when it moved, bop when it stopped, brrr when it stood still. I never knew just what it was, but I guess I never will. It first marched left, then marched right, then marched under a chair. And when I looked where it had gone, it wasn't even there. I started to cry, but my daddy laughed, for he knew that I would find. When I looked around, my marvelous toy was a chugging from behind. And it went zip when it moved, bop when it stopped, whirr when it stood still. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. Well, the years have gone by too swiftly, it seems. I now have my own little boy, and yesterday I gave to him my marvelous little toy. His eyes nearly popped right out of his head. He gave a squeal of glee. Neither one of us knows just what it is, but he loves it just like me, 'cause it goes zip when it moved, bop when it stopped, whirr when it stood still. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. Yay! Thank you very much. Good job, Kate.
We're about to sing our Seekers to their classroom, but I am making a spur-of-the-moment decision that I'm going to invite the older kids to stick around for this amazing service about raising UU kids. So let's sing our Seekers out, and they're going to learn some more things in their class.
We might have to sing that through twice. There are so many children. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning and understanding. Ours is a community where we share and grow our joys, a caring community where we share our sorrows and in that sharing find our burdens lessened. I've been asked to read two joys today. First, singer-songwriter Greg Greenway, who has performed here several times and is a longtime friend of this congregation, is out of the hospital and home, where he looks forward to making music again. And the second announcement, with deep gratitude, we are celebrating Sarah Jarvis's successful completion of her cancer treatment. Sarah and Betsy want to thank all of their UUCWNC friends for your support these past 7 months. You are now invited. I would like to call up Jane Quinn Horrell, who's going to share her thoughts on growing up a UU and raising a UU. And following Jane will be Dan Wheat Rivers, who will share on community and happiness.
My name is Jane. This is my UU daughter, Marissa. We've been coming to this congregation for about 7 years now, initially with both my parents and her, I was raised UU, and I'm raising a UU. I have a unique backstory that led me here. My dad identified as a recovering Catholic, raised by a Catholic mom and a Protestant dad, which in itself was a problem. My mom was a non-practicing Jew, the only child of a German Jewish immigrant mother and an illegal immigrant socialist German grandfather that died when she was very young. So it only made sense to load their 2 young children in a VW Beetle and drive from Florida to New York and have us dedicated as UUs at the All Souls congregation in New York City. As my parents told it, they chose UU because it equally offended the entire family and ended their calls to have us dedicated. Yes, quite a mix. To top it all off, we were raised in rural Georgia. And let me tell you, we did not fit in. Growing up in Georgia, most of my classmates either went to the giant Baptist church or the giant Methodist church that were across the street from each other. As kids do, I had deep philosophical questions, but mostly I just wanted to be like everyone else, to belong, to go to vacation Bible school with my friends that included an overnight camping trip to Lake Lanier. However, my dad believed we shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't go to church until we could make our own decisions. When I asked big questions like what happens when someone dies, my dad would say that's what every human being has been trying to explain since the beginning of time, and he would suggest a book to read. We didn't have a Bible in our house. We did have an endless supply of books, starting with Beatrix Potter, Thoreau, Emerson, Whitman, Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. If you've never read it, you should. There's Harper Lee, Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, Anne Frank, Jane Goodall. Additionally, my mom made friends with the one Indian family and the one black family in our entire school, setting up play dates across town that didn't make sense to us when there were kids in our neighborhood to play with. Little did I know, this was my UU starter pack. When I was in 7th grade, we went to the newly dedicated Emerson UU in Marietta, Georgia. They were small and didn't have a full-time minister, but within that eclectic and amazing group of people, we found our faith home. In fact, one of our dearest friends there was a Holocaust survivor, and another lady that went there was an ex-nun. It was a great group. I was thrilled to be part of their RE program and finally got to attend a church camp at the Mountain in Highlands, North Carolina. And while this is indeed a unique background, it's not at all unusual to meet UUs with equally interesting and peculiar backgrounds. And unlike other faiths, the amount of time you've been a UU doesn't particularly matter. Whether you've been coming here a week or your whole life, you contribute unique qualities that are essential to our makeup. When our daughter was born, we didn't feel obligated to have her dedicated. My husband's family is Christian, but we kept our distance on that front. She hasn't felt the same pressure from society to be part of one faith or church or another, but then it happened. She started getting invited to go to church or vacation Bible school with friends. And then she had questions. You know her. There are so many questions. Around that same time, my parents had moved to Wilmington too, so I packed everyone up and I brought them here, never thinking it was for me at all. My parents needed to make new friends in a new town. My kiddo needed a faith family. It wasn't for me, I was just their coordinator. My dad immediately clicked with Reverend Cheryl. They had a lot of New York in common. And she was able to break beyond the Catholic chip on his shoulder, and he was finally freed of it. Then came Reverend Kathy at just the right time, who spoke gently and kindly to my mom, careful not to scare the disenfranchised off. Reverend Kelly and Dan have connected with my daughter seamlessly, and it's invaluable. My first volunteer job here was working in an RE class 2 to 3 times a month. I think the class was 3rd to 6th grade or so and included my daughter, and we averaged about 8 kids in any given Sunday. One particular Sunday's lesson was centered around our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We had a kid-friendly poster on the wall that says something like, "We believe all people are equally important." The conversation was we'd added "even if" to the end of that sentence. So, we believe all people are equally important, even if. Their conversation was intense as kids tossed out options. Equally important even if they're immigrants, even if they're women, even if they're old. And then someone said, even if they're gay. My child asked what gay was. I explained simply it's when a girl wants to marry a girl or a boy wants to marry a boy. And that some people in some churches don't think that's okay. And in fact, some people in our family don't think that's okay. She audibly gasped and immediately got mad. It hadn't even registered to her that that wasn't okay, much less that people would be against it. And my husband and I had never realized she didn't know that. It was okay in our house, and although we talk about everything at our kitchen table, this just hadn't come up. Normally, I would feel terrible about my child being ignorant. But in this case, I was so proud. We had inadvertently been raising a UU all along. She's 15 now. She comes to services with me occasionally, much like Robin's boys. She's busy doing her own thing. She sometimes comes to nerds, picnics. She even came to a full moon group once. When she stopped coming to services weekly, she asked me if it was okay. I told her I've never forced her to go to church, and I never will. But this continues to be a safe place for her, her village where she knows she's always welcomed and always loved. She and I talk about our beliefs quite a bit. Her faith is different than mine, and that's wonderful. I'm so proud of that. I know she's got a good UU foundation that will stay with her forever. Kindness, respect for all, fairness, empathy, and to be strong enough to side with love and fight for justice. My little UU.
Jane, you're not supposed to make me cry before I come up here to speak. No, you're not. Kelly and I became Unitarian Universalists long before Emma came along almost 9 years ago. We migrated to this faith tradition for a number of reasons, but personal theology and social justice were chief among them. When Stacy presented the idea for this service, and I started thinking about raising kids as UU, and specifically Emma, my first thought was about community. As I've said to just about anyone who would listen over the past several years, this is a home for Emma. From a very young age, we would walk through the front door as a family, and Emma would almost immediately leave our sides. She'd head to her class, be comfortable alone anywhere in the building, anywhere among any of us, she was fine, including helping me in the sound booth, where she started to learn some of those skills. But I know a lot of communities feel that way for their people, so I continued to dig deeper and ask, why UU? I come from a very Southern and Christian roots. I grew up with a lot of isms in my life, being taught them from traditions in church and at home, even though many were unintentional and unknowingly taught. Our community is not perfect, but I'm less worried about that happening here. And when something like that does happen, we're opening to having a discussion or a workshop about it. I like that Emma is being raised in a home where we have anti-racism workshops, democracy parties, and maybe one day soon, a drag story hour.
We are open to a world of possibilities here. We are rooted in principles and not dogma. In the OWL program, we actually teach healthy sexuality and what that means. I don't have to worry about sexuality being a source of shame for Emma as she grows up, as it has been for so many. And if she turns out to be queer, I'm not worried about her being ostracized from this community. I truly believe this community will accept my kid, no matter who she turns out to be, without trying to change her. I can't say that for the faith community I grew up in. I'm glad Emma is sick today in a way because she's heard her parents talk about how great this community is for her and how proud we are of her. I want to thank you all for helping me raise my daughter as a UU because it is this community that's been so important for us.
Hi, so Michael Sheridan is going to come up and talk to us about our Share the Plate recipient for this week.
Good morning. Our Share the Plate donation this week is supporting the Disability Right NC's Accessible Rides program. Transportation insecurity is the primary reason people with disabilities who are registered to vote don't vote. Although paratransit is available in all 100 North Carolina counties, it does not provide free rides to vote because Medicaid does not reimburse for this service. Many organizational vans are not equipped to safely transport people with disabilities, or they lack the required insurance coverage. And rideshare vehicles like Uber or Lyft can only provide rides to get a voter ID at no cost to the rider, but not to actually vote. Additionally, new requirements for mail-in voting and the delay with the mail-in ballots may create additional barriers for people with disabilities. To address these barriers, Disability Rights North Carolina is expanding its successful Accessible Rides program. Our donation will go toward reimbursing established paratransit providers and rideshare networks in New Hanover County and across the state, as well as providing training and coordination of volunteer drivers. If you're interested in being a volunteer driver, you can sign up at the Social Justice Ministry table in Dopkin Hall right after service. It's one of our democracy actions. And I'm so pleased to announce, as a bonus, the UUA, you know, the big national UUA, they've committed to match our donation for this organization. So please give generously. Will the ushers please come forward to collect this morning's offering?
Yesterday, a child came out to wonder, caught a dragonfly inside a jar. Fearful when the sky was full of thunder, and tearful hide from where we came and go round and round and round in a circle game. And go round and round and round in a circle game.
Thank you. I'm looking for Cornelia Maxted, who's going to be our last speaker today. She asks the question, why raise UU kids?
Good morning. At one point when my kids were little, and they were coming up to do something here, and I said, "Aren't you nervous?" I said, "No, everybody out there will love us." That's one thing I did not gain from them. So excuse me while I catch my breath. So, okay, so good morning. I am a second generation UU, and along with my husband Richard, we raised our two now adult children as third generation UUs. I grew up in the First Unitarian Church of New Bedford, Massachusetts, and as a little one, I sat in the story circle and learned from the crafts and activities. I loved the traditions and being part of a multi-generational community. It was my place, and those tall adults were all there for me. As we grew a little older, many of the other kids drifted away, but some of those tall adults came along and taught me needlework and sat with me on Sunday mornings as we covered footstools with our handiwork and chatted, and they kept me feeling like I mattered and I belonged. In my teen years, one of those no longer seeming quite so tall adults asked me to lead the Sunday childcare program, and I did so for the next 4 years. In the midst of this, a friend and I asked if we could start up a summer-long lunchtime cafe in the flowered yard of this downtown church. The board said yes and offered a startup kitty and a clever name, the Garden of Eden. So not only did these amazing entrepreneurial experiences get mentioned in my college application essays, but the cafe brought some of the other youth back to be part of the staff, and it brought many new people through the front door. So along with some of those newly returned cafe staffers, I started off the next few summers with a week at the UUA teen retreat on Star Island. Now we're all hearing about the kids that love coming here on Sunday mornings. Well, imagine the bonding and the learning and the fun when dozens of UU teens are together on a beautiful rocky island off the coast of New Hampshire. It was magical, and it cemented for me early on the importance of having moral and philosophical connections with others. And then some years went by, and every so often I'd try out a Sunday service at the nearest UU congregation. It was all nice enough, but I rarely found anyone else of my age or stage. And then one day, the little Irish Catholic girl from next door asked my kids what religion they were. And our 5-year-old daughter looked up at me with questioning eyes and said, I'm a vegetarian. I knew it was time to go back. And then it was our kids' turn to hear the stories and learn from the activities and find the nooks and crannies in the UU Shelter Rock campus. They came of age amongst a new generation of tall adults who advised them along the way and through many life-affirming experiences, from the mother-daughter body image program to confidently declaring, "This I believe," with their own personal credos. There was OWL and midnight runs for youth to bring sandwiches and hot soup to the unhoused on Manhattan street corners and to talk with them at midnight about their stories. And the trip to New Orleans, where the teens worked on Hurricane Katrina cleanup by day and received advocacy training at night. There was the intergenerational jazz band, where one of the adult members was transitioning from Bob to Barbara. The youth weren't fazed. Bob Barbara was a really great drummer. On and on I could go with examples of formative experiences, the kind one doesn't often get in school or sports or band or other such typical growing up sorts of venues. They all led to a strong sense of self. They also led to a deeply intrinsic sense that the congregation was home and it was family. And it was filled with tall adults who truly wanted our youth to thrive, whoever they were and with whatever obstacles they encountered. How amazing is that support for a teenager or a young adult going out into the world? Our son is now a professor at UC Berkeley and finds he often calls upon verbiage and concepts he learned in RE. Our daughter works with NGOs and is currently providing wheelchairs and prosthetic devices to underserved countries. She is a Peace Corps alum who met her husband in Burkina Faso, West Africa. He too is a third-generation UU. And they recently started attracting other younger adults to their congregation through social justice projects. In my childhood congregation and in my children's childhood congregation, there were members that put a lot of time and creativity into working with the youth. There were many that contributed in other ways instead, and all together they made up amazing communities. So why raise UU kids? My answer is because each, in their own way, will be next generation leaders. Being raised as UUs will help them become solidly grounded, confident, and capable of taking on whatever comes their way and whatever they set their minds to. And much like the earlier Wilmington UU congregants that built this congregation up to where we are today, we are all part of something that today's youth will take with them wherever they go. And just to finish up, I recently received a note telling me that the New Bedford UU Stitching Group recently refurbished the needlework footstools we made 50 years ago, and mine was still going strong.
It takes many, many people to put together a Sunday service. So thank you today to Robin, Kelly, Dan, Jane, and Cornelia for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Thank you to Linda Herudian, who was our greeter, Kathy Gilchrist at the welcome table, Sylvia Quinn and John Grigsby, who are doing hospitality, Max Fry, who was our room verger, and Ron Cochran, assisted by Ed Brophy and Sandy in our booth. And some of the people who work on Sunday services you never get to see. So a huge thank you to Martha Brophy and the music team for today's special music. They brought so much to today's service. A sincere and heartfelt thank you to all of you. In closing, I would like to say that not everyone has a community like this one. So when you leave this place, take the love you feel this morning and share it with everyone you meet. Let's extinguish the chalice together with the words on the screen. No? There we go. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. If you would all stand, hold hands, and join us in singing Shalom.